2. Yes, I got him. Just the man I wanted to talk to. David Rothkopf on what day is it? Thursday here in July. Good to see you, and thank you for joining me.
It's good to be here, Pete. I hope you're enjoying your summer.
Oh, it's been, really laid back and exciting and not too much going on. I'm enjoying it. And I didn't know this about you, though. I was just looking at the blue sky. You come from several generations who attended Columbia University in New York City. You went there yourself. You actually taught there. You go all the way back to Columbia himself, your family lineage. Is that right? Did I lose you? What happened?
I have no idea.
Are you there? Can you hear me?
I have no idea.
Oh, he's gone. Well, that was a great interview. Nailed it. Thanks for everybody for coming through. I don't think he said anything but great to be here. Oh, everything is coming up flowers. What's the phrase? He'll be back. He'll be right back. All right. Did you guys hear me? Thank you for being here. I appreciate you joining me. Blah, blah, blah. And there he is. Now we'll try again. How's that?
Good.
Did you not hear anything I said? It was hilarious because we had technical issues before we got to one question.
I didn't hear anything you said.
I said I learned today that you come from like 5 generations of Columbia University.
It's true.
All the way back to Columbia. And then you just stared at me, and I was like, "That's not that funny," but I don't know that you need to stare at me like I'm Al Qaeda for 5 minutes, and then you just dropped, and it was live, so everybody's just laughing at me.
I used to be really proud of going to Columbia.
What happened?
What has happened in the past week?
So what happened? They made a settlement, and they gave $200 million away, and for what? What do they get? I don't understand.
Well, they get back the funding that came from the federal government, but they make the critical mistake with Trump of capitulating, and so when you capitulate, he's going to go back for more, and so there's still things hanging over the head of the university, like will it be accredited, or will they allow in international students? And although Columbia is asserting, well, we have academic freedom, we can hire anybody we want, we can let in anybody we want. That's not exactly true. Under the terms of this, there's going to be some intergovernment review of the criteria for letting in international students. There is going to be some review of the Middle East Institute there. There's going to be some review of what they're doing on anti-Semitism issues, which of course was the whole bullshit pretext of this thing. And I think as a consequence, Columbia is going to think it's going off doing its thing, and the administration is going to come back at them. And I'm just ashamed. I'm ashamed that the university would do this.
Just on the one thing about the whole anti-Semitism thing, those charges began after October 7th and the protests with the reaction to it and everything. But let's concede for the moment that there are anti-Semitism problems on campuses across the country, and the government has the right to say or do something about that. I keep thinking about the sexism and the epidemic of sexual assault. I'm old enough to have covered that issue, and it's horrible on campuses across the country, like sexual assault and rape of women predominantly. And obviously we could talk about the problems with racism on campus and stuff. I wonder why they picked anti-Semitism, and they aren't talking about, I think, what are far more serious issues like sexual assault and rape crises on campuses across the country, much less in the military.
Well, look, it was an available issue during a presidential campaign in which people could say, inflame certain kinds of passions. And that there were some very, big groups that wanted to make this an issue. Yeah, I think your point is a good point. I would add to it that, The people who were out there protesting, for the most part, were not anti-Semitic. They were not pro-Hamas. They were people who were outraged at the slaughter in Gaza, and they were people who felt that Palestinians had rights that should be recognized. The people who were out there protesting, as it turns out, were on the right side of the issue. And the people who, were pushing back and saying, how dare you go after Israel this way? They're on the wrong side of the issue. And, we're seeing this now, these hideous stories of children and others starving to death in Gaza because they're not letting through humanitarian aid. This on top of 100,000 people dead, on top of destroying the whole place, on top of trying to do the same thing, and sort of annex the whole West Bank. It's a head fake, but it was never about anti-Semitism. That was a pretext, just like going after Harvard and DEI was a pretext. What they want to do is control what's taught in the schools. What they want to do is make sure that teachers don't teach courses that they don't like. They're in the middle of a massive, unprecedented campaign to censor the United States, to end free speech in the United States. You saw it yesterday. The president announced his AI action plan, and he said that they're going to be policing AI to make sure that it doesn't contain woke ideas.
I guess they can do that with that technology, right? I mean, it's not hard.
Well, theoretically, but the question is, what do you do about, what happens when AI says, "Oh, there was actually Black history in America," which they're trying to cut out of the high schools.
Well, they're trying to do everything they can through their ideology and enacting it through Project 2025. They're doing what they said they were going to do in every element of our culture, of our life. We're talking about academia, and we can talk more about academia in terms of the precedent it sets for other colleges. But we obviously have to talk about media, networks, not legal law firms. You mentioned. So I want to ask you just to weigh in on specifically the Colbert thing. Let
me start with an overview issue, and then I'll dive into that.
Because an overview issue, please.
Yeah. Well, no, I just there's a lot of talk. You talk about how the institutions in Washington are in crisis, or how the institutions in Washington have failed us, the Supreme Court or Congress, and clearly now the executive branch. I get it. The political parties that we have an institutional crisis in Washington. But I think what all of this is revealing is that we have a broader institutional crisis in the United States, because the big institutions that should be standing up for our rights and our freedoms and our values in this country, media institutions, universities, law firms, clergy, they're not doing it. Every once in a while, somebody is. But for the most part, they're capitulating. They're bending the knee. And every time they do, they take us a step closer to fascism. And every time they do, they empower Trump and they send a message saying your intimidation is working. The Colbert thing is a perfect example where you have the owner of Paramount wanting to do a deal with Skydance that needs government approval. And the government saying, well, we're not going to approve it. I mean, somebody is saying it to them unless you sort of conform to certain kinds of values that we want and bend the knee. And so the first thing they did was that they signed it, cut a deal on the 60 Minutes lawsuit, which is groundless. But they did it because they thought it would get the government off their back. And of course, the settlement, the amount that they settled the 60 Minutes lawsuit for, is going to go to where? It's going to go to the Trump Presidential Library. It's almost a direct payoff. Yeah, almost a direct payoff to the President of the United States. Then, on top of that, that wasn't enough. And because this is always true, capitulation always gets more pressure. Then, Colbert said that was disgusting. and they bumped him off the air. And if you think that this nonsense that it was about the financials is accurate, that's just baloney. And Stephen Colbert is among the few cases that I can think of where you have people in the media standing up and taking on the president on a regular basis. There are a few, and I have to say, the comedians are doing a better job than Hollywood.
Well,
they're doing a better job than theater. You've got Jon Stewart, you've got John Oliver, you've got other people who are doing this. Jimmy Kimmel is doing it, but I don't know about you. I'd be interested in your point of view. To me, I'm kind of struck by the relative silence of the entertainment community in the face of all of this.
Well, the relative silence of the entertainment community in any number of sectors, from the people who greenlight Hollywood films, network leaders, to actual performers who have social media followings on Instagram, especially, and they sell sneakers to both Republicans and Democrats, or in this case, movies and TV shows and so on, I suppose. And it's been, I think it's fair to say, overall, there's not enough outrage and people are still waiting. I think it's shocking to see what's been so overt, specifically with Colbert. I also think comedians have the easiest way to react and send a message, the way Columbia or a network or a law firm, I guess they could do the same thing. But like Colbert and Jon Stewart came back on Monday night with a united message, which was go fuck yourself. And I guess Netflix is not going to say that. I mean, when you're a giant,
but where's the art of parody? Where are the people who are making, movies and TV shows? That they're not that many. There is one today, though.
South Park.
Did you see it?
I mean, it feels like everybody has seen it, and now it's becoming this link where people are doing a bit where, have you seen this? And they're leading you to something else, and then you click it and you watch Trump with the AI. I hope everybody has seen it. If you haven't seen it, go see it and then share it. But what does that mean that those guys are doing that? That's the biggest FU, by the way. And I mean, they can be highbrow, lowbrow, but small penis jokes are the best thing you can do to a guy who's most concerned about such things, I suppose.
Yeah, and there are multiple small penis jokes in it, and they're very funny.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
part of the thing that makes it a big fuck you is that Paramount went and wrote a giant check to these guys for like $1 billion for more South Parks, and they can't do any. These guys are sort of untouchable to them.
The contract that they wrote must have given them entire creative control over there, because that's got to be
right. And so what are they going to do about it? It's really good. But
what do you mean? So when you say that, and I was asked about this, I've been asked about this a lot lately, that all these different institutions and people are cowering, and I fully agree with that. But the comedians really aren't in many ways. The top ones aren't, which is great. And if Colbert goes away, by the way, he comes back way more powerful than ever before, is my guess, because
he's already way more powerful.
As a result,
he's going to be on the air for the next 10 months.
You think they don't just shut it down?
I think they won't, but we'll see what happens.
Wait.
But somebody else will put him on the air. I mean, we don't know how exactly how that's going to play out. But for the moment, every time he says anything about Trump, it's a news story, right?
Can we just say that something that's not so controversial, but also true? Like, these shows are going away, all of the late night shows, because the format is no longer the relevancy it was. And so great for most of our lifetime, those monologues, I think I always look forward to those, no matter who is doing them. And all the best comedy writers get together all day and talk about the news and give it to the front man, and he does it. I love that. But now Rothkopf is just as funny, which is probably why one of his daughters is a comedy writer. And so you can go on Blue Sky or wherever and do these tweets all day. And so by the time it gets like, it's kind of a dead format for that reason alone. There's so much great comedy. Colbert's going to do something a little bit different. I say he runs for president, but the bottom line is, just as an aside, like those shows are all going away because of
they are going away. And I think things have changed a lot because frankly, it's better to watch that format on social media. I mean, just be honest, right? I mean, it's better.
I think so.
I watch, the Graham Norton show in chunks on TikTok.
Sure.
And it works. And I think, there are also other shows and other formats that have emerged. As you mentioned, my daughter, she writes for the John Oliver Show. The John Oliver Show does each week to the news with an incredible depth what you can't do, in your opening monologue. And
my understanding is it's pretty profitable for HBO.
I understand it is. By the way, my daughter works for John Oliver Show. My other daughter's husband works for Colbert.
That's right. That's right.
So this has been a big subject of conversation,
I'm sure,
in the family. And he writes cold opens. I mean, he does this stuff.
Well, he's going to continue to do, I'm sure, fine, and I'm sure that Colbert will too. Getting back to that point, I mean, so I guess my larger point was that the comedians aren't cowering necessarily, and how could they, and what would that look like to even if we're going to go to comedy clubs and police comedians in comedy clubs, comedians are going to do what gets laughs, even if a robot's going to laser their head off by the government. Like,
well, I think God knows. I hope it continues. Also, the Trump administration. I mean, has there ever been better fodder for comedians? I mean, talk to me about the Melania Trump Opera House at the Kennedy Center. I mean,
it's also just like not only the jokes about it, but like the multimedia, like the cartoons you can do and the mashups you can do. And some of the funniest shit to me is still the impressions of Trump or Carolyn Levitt or anybody,
and they're doing them everywhere. And that's another thing on social media. There's one guy who's a Chinese guy who does Trump, who's like got this huge social media following.
Oh, I got to find it.
And he's, he's hilarious, and he just does Trump all the time. And the Chinese love this, and they find it hilarious. But the whole world. You probably
making fun of him.
Yeah, because he's ridiculous.
I think I found it.
Yeah, well, there you go.
I can't wait. Yeah, because he's ridiculous, and so that doesn't go anywhere. Like they're a parody of themselves, but they're also at the same time extremely dangerous in what they're doing every day. So,
but also Trump realizes the one thing that really damages him is ridicule. He's all about how does he appear, and is he a big guy, and is he a big man, and all this other kind of stuff. And the reality is, comedy, making fun of him, is one of the few proven antidotes to Trumpism.
Yeah, it's his kryptonite. He is never, the most insecure man is one who can't laugh at himself at all, and he's never been able to do that. In fact, the opposite is true. He's just constantly projecting, trying to make people think he's likable and strong. Well, let's get into the Epstein thing. I really wanted to talk with you about that. I mean, you've been talking about this. You've been talking to some really smart people about every aspect of it. I wonder if there's anything. I wasn't sure. I was like, when I talked to Rothkopf about Epstein, I'm not sure which question to ask him because there's so many really relevant details. I guess I definitely wanted to ask you just about the Democrats' reaction to it and how they should be handling it. He's trying to throw out anything he can to distract, including the Obama treason charges and everything. Shouldn't Democrats be talking about only this? Is this not the fracture point, the greatest one we've seen, at least?
I don't know. I have to say, you're probably talking to the wrong person. I wrote a piece for the Daily Beast last week on this, in which I took a position that a lot of people don't agree with.
Oh, I didn't see it.
And the position is, I just don't think it's going to turn into a big deal. People are going to talk about it. It's summertime. They talk about this kind of shit. But we know Trump hung out with Epstein. We know that Trump is a sleazebag. We know that he's been accused almost 24 times of sexual assault. We know that a judge said that that the decision that had been brought down on him was effectively a rape decision. We know that he steals national secrets. We know that he was impeached twice. We know that he was bankrupt 6 times. We know that he's a terrible person. He's the sleaziest human being who has ever lived. How the hell is the Epstein thing going to change that? Well, the argument is
there's a line of pedophilia. That's the argument.
Well, maybe, but I think the bigger argument is, that MAGA wanted him to bring them to bring this down, and wanted Trump to blow the lid off of this thing, and he's not following through, and that's creating fissures in MAGA, and that may have an impact on the 2026 election. Well, maybe, and if that's the case, great. But I got to ask you, how does this play out? So what? What if they release all this stuff? I mean, what's going to happen then? Is he going to have to resign because he was a sleazebag? He was elected because he was a sleazebag. I mean, he's got, the ability to change the subject every day, and is. God knows. I mean, there was a meeting today between the Deputy Attorney General and Ghislaine Maxwell, which clearly is going to involve some hanky-panky to make sure that she is shut up.
You think he's going to have Todd Blanche is going to have sex with Ghislaine, or you're saying that there's going to be some corrupt offer? You said hanky-panky. That's what everybody else thought when they heard it.
Well, okay. That's it. Sex with Ghislaine. No, I think she wants out. She's not going to, that's all. The only reason
out of jail, you have to say these lies about the president. You want the deal? Yeah. She'll do whatever it takes. She's
she's already proven that's what she does. Right. So, and she gets pardoned, and, everybody's happy except, 360 million Americans. But I think that this thing creates a lot of hubbub, but there have been so many things that create hubbub about Trump. I'm sorry. I'm just going to, Trump stole national secrets, nuclear secrets, and put them in his bathroom.
Let me try one pushback. You may be right. I mean, there's certainly a lot of precedent that you'd be right, but you say nuclear secrets, or he's a creep, or he's, thrice divorced, or he's a criminal, or whatever. The one thing that MAGA really seems to know a lot about is Epstein. And it's pretty simple messaging that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files, and then these stories keep coming out, and he's closer and closer. And a lot of people think, and you've seen some on the right, some pretty vociferous, loyal MAGA soldiers be like, this is a deal breaker. If it's true, he has to go to jail. If he did bad things, we're anti. That's the line is pedophile, is the argument.
I mean, he's been accused of rape by a 12-year-old.
He might not have heard it. And this Epstein thing.
Well, okay. But at first, and secondly, the Department of Justice is now his Department of Justice. Yeah. So who's going to prosecute him? Who's going to do anything against him? The Supreme Court's in his pocket. The Congress literally shut down in the middle of this, said, sorry, we're leaving because we don't want to talk about this.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
I mean, right. So I think people are going to go get outraged and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, all these other things that are fucking freaky as hell are happening, and people aren't talking about it. Alina Habba.
Why is that so important that Alina Habba is no longer in
Okay,
the role in New Jersey?
Well, let me just provide my own take.
Please.
Alina Habba was appointed interim U.S. attorney for New Jersey, right? She had the job for 120 days because that's what happens if you're not Senate confirmed. At the end of 120 days, the law says that the district court judges there either allow her to continue, allow the person to continue, or they pick somebody else. They said, no, we don't want her to continue. We're picking somebody else. They took a civil servant who was acting as her deputy and said, you will now be the acting U.S. attorney until somebody is nominated and confirmed by the Senate. Why did they do that? That's what the law says. Instantly, the administration fired the woman that they picked and said, this is judges meddling and that this is judicial activism and the president should be able to pick anybody he wants. Well, that's not the law. The law is the law, and the Department of Justice has adopted this line that whatever Trump says is the law.
Right.
If that's what happens, we're done as a country. We are a dictatorship, and the Congress doesn't stand up against it. The Supreme Court has, every time it's been put up to Trump, has rolled over and played Trump's way. I think, maybe these district judges will be the ones who stand up, and this may be an example. But in the same week, also to distract from Epstein, you have this complete nincompoop who's the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, right? This woman does not belong as a bus driver, and much less the head of the U.S. intelligence community. And she stands up and says, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Susan Rice, John Brennan, James Comey committed treason to come up with the Russia story. And they should be prosecuted. And, never mind the presidents have immunity. They should be prosecuted.
Oh, yeah. What about that? Presidents have immunity. Does Obama not get immunity because the decision came after?
Well, no, he gets immunity. He gets immunity too, apparently. But the point is, they're accusing their opponents of treason.
Yeah.
Based on a lie. There are 17 agencies in the U.S. intelligence community. Every single one of them concluded Russia was interfering in the election. The Senate Intelligence Committee issued a report saying this.
Yeah.
Who was the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee when they did it?
The current Secretary of State. Has he been asked?
The current Secretary of State. I don't know that he's been asked. But look where we are. So they're doing stuff. Epstein is Epstein. Okay, fine. We're not going to learn anything we didn't know about Trump. But each and every week that he continues to behave this way, we're going to be less a democracy. We're going to be less a nation of laws. He is going to be the last word on everything. And on top of all of this, now you may say, oh, I don't care, democracy, what is it? Doesn't matter to me. I work in the Kmart or whatever. We are falling behind the rest of the world on issue after issue after issue. People don't trust us. Going back to your prior point, we're a laughing stock. Yeah. This tariff stuff is going to be inflationary and crazy and damaging. We are collapsing in terms of global standing.
Another thing I wanted to ask you, I disagree with all that. I think we're fine. I just wanted to push back. I want to.
Okay. No, that's a great retort, and I think how can I argue with the?
I think we're doing great. I think you're being hyperbolic, but
yeah, okay.
One of the things I don't understand this. I think you understand it pretty well. Issue around can't even explain it. The Pentagon, the Defense Department announced it's no longer going to work with think tanks, and apparently that's a very bad thing. And I don't understand what that relationship is, why it is, or why it matters.
Okay, so let's take just a case in point. Apparently the triggering case in point. Last week, there's something called the Aspen Strategy Group, where you get national security people, military leaders, people from around the world. They get together every year off in the mountains of Aspen. They have all sorts of discussions about like what's going on in the world and what's important and so forth. And it's a chance to hear what other expert perspectives are. Every year, people from the administration go and participate in this thing.
Whatever administration,
whoever's
in office, they go to the Aspen,
because it's a bipartisan group. One of the chairs of the Aspen Strategy Group is Condoleezza Rice, who was, Secretary of State under Bush.
Did you ever go to this?
Yeah, and so this is an important thing. So Hegseth says, "I'm not going. I don't want anybody to go." Because they're former members of the Biden administration there, because it's tainted. It's not going to be fair discussion, and which is complete bullshit. And I remember sitting on the stage of the Aspen Strategy Group doing a panel as Trump was coming into office. And one of the guys on my panel, David Petraeus, who former general, was just sitting there singing the praises of Trump. And how he would do a good job and all this other stuff. So it is a balanced format, but
he's covered in so much glory, that Petraeus.
Yeah, exactly. But here's the thing: a lot of senior military officials go to this thing, and they get to talk to top, experts, and they learn stuff. And they hear other points of view, and they talk to people from elsewhere in the world. And this is how, you're in your job, you're head down all day long. How do you get perspective? Well, these think tanks in Washington convene events all the time that bring together experts around important issues. It's in the interests of the United States of America that the people who are decision makers actually get to sit and talk to experts with different points of view so they can learn what's going on. There's a phenomenon that happens in the national security community where in an administration, people only talk to each other, and they start to think alike. Yeah. They don't question the decisions that are being made. They start believing their own propaganda. And that's extremely dangerous, particularly if you're in an administration where a lot of the decisions are based on lies or denial of science or denial of reality. And so this is just, it's putting them further and further into the bubble, and making people who should be seeking best advice not do it. And by the way, it all comes from Trump, because Trump, he doesn't want a National Security Council. He's got an acting head of the NSC. These are the experts in the government. He doesn't get briefings because he thinks he knows everything. There was a Wall Street Journal article or some article earlier this week that said somebody came in and explained something to Trump. And Trump said, "People don't explain to me. I explain to them."
Really?
And this is this is a government of idiots, right? Yeah. Hegseth is an idiot. Tulsi Gabbard is an idiot. John Ratcliffe, the head of the CIA, is a hack. There is no head of the National Security Council. It's Marco Rubio, who's not an idiot, but Rubio has essentially said, "I will say or do anything to be in the position that I'm in. I have no conscience. I have no spine."
No, yeah. Hollow barrel. Yeah. I'm sure that whole relationship between think tanks and the federal government or local and state government even is not only true of national security issues, but it's true of environmental policy, health policy.
Sure.
Everything.
Absolutely.
Nonprofits and people from the government, current active leaders in agencies across the federal government. They go to these events all over the country to hear from. Right?
Exactly. Well, that's the point. Government officials don't go to these events just to deliver views. They go to listen. At least the smart ones do.
And it creates at least the idea of at least they're subjecting themselves to other elites' criticism, much less the public at large, you know?
Exactly right.
All right. Well, I think we're in good shape. And I think things sound like we're doing well right now, is what I'm hearing.
Well, if you're comfortable with where we are, Pete, I'm comfortable with where we are.
Yeah. You know, I think it's going to be fine.
If you think, then I'm just going to go sit by the pool.
Now, I don't want that because you got to keep putting stuff. I took a couple days off and unplugged, and I went right to your timeline. And I mean, you have to keep working. I think you do great work. I just saw that you had my Lord and Savior, Dahlia Lithwick on your show.
Dahlia Lithwick is great. We try to have her on every few weeks.
National treasure. Yeah.
And she is a wonderful, wonderful woman.
Who is someone else that you like? Maybe put you on the spot and I'll let you go. That you haven't interviewed that you'd like to have on one of your various programs? Is there anybody that you haven't talked to that you'd like to? You have pretty good access.
Pete, I don't interview. I get interviewed.
Amazing callback. Well done. So what I'm hearing is Rahm Emanuel. Got it.
Yeah.
My microphone, my headphone.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate you joining us very, very much.
Pleasure.
All right. I'm going to end the stream for everybody. Thanks for watching live. If you did, and I'm going to say goodbye to David.